today marks the first day of the Phowa teachings, the transference. And first of all, as we are always saying, whether we are listening to Dharma, whether we are practicing Dharma, even the smallest virtue that we engage in, first we're always emphasizing the importance of setting the highest motivation. And so that means giving rise to the vast bodhicitta, giving rise to the vast bodhicitta. And if our virtuous action and our practice is saturated by this bodhicitta motivation, then we can yield a very vast, very magnanimous result to our practice, to our accomplishment. And so now as well, we will be first training, teaching the Phowa, and then training in the Phowa transference. So let us set like the highest, vastest, purest motivation for doing so.
今天是破瓦讲授和传授的第一天。我们学法和修法的第一件事就是要升起菩提心。即使我们的闻法跟修法有很小的功德，但是如果有巨大的菩提心的话，那么我们的福德跟果报是不可思量的。所以在我们修法闻法的开始，让我们大家先升起这个菩提心。
When we talk about practicing Dharma, we always talk about the body, the speech, and the mind, but really it is mind. It is mind that is principle. It is mind that we are working with, that we want to tame, that we want to train and subdue. And so it's extremely important that we give rise to the right state of mind and that we are able to correct this or to cultivate this bodhicitta motivation.
我们每回修法的时候，都是说我们要从身口意三个方面来修。在这个三个身口意之中，最重要的是我们的意念，是我们自身的这个意念，我们要tame， 我们要把握住，我们要观察，我们要subdue， 我不知道中文是什么，所以我们现在一定要检查自身的意念，来看一看我们的现在心是怎么样的。
So today the way we will go through the teaching is kind of like we will read through the Phowa and I will explain, and then at the same time we will take the time throughout for you to practice. I think that's the most beneficial. So we'll do the teaching at the same time as we do the practice together.
今天我们会读这个破瓦的这个法本，然后解释法本中的内容。同时呢，也很重要的一件事情，我们要是同时修这个法，修法是最重要的。
Normally what we would do is we would just do the teaching of the instructions over the course of an entire day. But what happens is you get an earful of quite a lot of information, but a very short time to actually have the chance to practice it. And so this doesn't bring so much benefit, because what we need is the time to actually practice what we hear. So also, hearing so much information, it doesn't all get retained in the mind and then you forget it. So.
一般我们讲法是这一天都在讲这个法，但是呢，信息会很多，也许不能够马上接受， 我们今天在这里用这个机会来修行，这样的话可以把我们学到的东西用到实际上中。
So the word Phowa, we translate as transference. This is a very specific practice, and the meaning of the word itself, transfer, also is the same as moving. It means like moving from one location to another location. So it has that connotation too of movement, transference.
破瓦这个词的意思呢，从藏文就是说是转牵示就是有这个动作的这个意思，有移动的这个意思，从一个地方到另外一个地方。
For an advanced practitioner who has already brought his or her practice of Girim and Zorim, that is development and completion stage practices, to their consummation, to their full accomplishment, this kind of a superior level advanced practitioner who's already accomplished these practices, they don't need these kind of Phowa instructions because they already transfer in what is known as the supreme Phowa of the transference into the Dharmakaya, the Dharmakaya Phowa. But that is through realization of the view. And so for that kind of high level practitioner, then they transfer, they accomplish the Phowa or transference naturally in the very expanse of Dharmakaya by merging their intrinsic awareness with basic space as one, by attaining Buddhahood in the very expanse of Dharmadhatu, or the basic space. So for this kind of high-level individual, they don't need this kind of Phowa of the three perceptions that we are going to teach today. Or for a practitioner who has accomplished his practices, her practices of development and completion stage, they also can attain Buddhahood in the nature of the Sambhogakaya. So they don't need these instructions either. However, nowadays to find a practitioner who is at such a level that they have accomplished all of these practices of development and completion is very rare, and there are very few practitioners who have reached this accomplishment. So for all the rest of us, it is extremely crucial to have these instructions. For those of us who have not yet brought our practice of development and completion to its consummation, these Phowa instructions are very important.
对一些已经修行很久有成就的修行者，他们有的已经可以把他们的意识融入到这个法性，他们已经成就了这个法身，或者他们已经成就了这个报身。这样的话，他们不需要这个破瓦法，因为他们已经有了一定的成就。但是这样的修行者还是很少，所以对我们大多数的修行者是非常的重要，我们来学这个破瓦法。
So how is it that a practitioner transfers or awakens into this state of Dharmakaya, the Dharmakaya Phowa, or the state of Sambhogakaya, the Sambhogakaya Phowa? Normally, when the Phowa teachings are given, this is not explained in detail. This is not really explained in the context of the general Phowa instructions. And not only that, but the phase of the dissolution of our body, how the elements dissolve, the dissolution phase at death, and the stages of dissolution, this is also not taught in the Phowa teachings themselves, but usually it is only read to a dying person when they are actually dying. Then you will read the instructions on what is happening to their body and the phases of dissolution meant. But in my opinion, I think it's better to know this before we die. So I'm going to read through this. It will give you some kind of preview of the phases of dissolution that you can expect at the time of death.
在一般的破瓦的讲解中，并没有讲到底怎样能够牵使到法身或者是报身，而是当一个临将去世的人读这个破瓦的法本然后他这个身体可以知道是怎么样这个地水火风是怎么样的溶解，但是我个人认为我们也要知道这些的内容，这样好做好准备。